So launched in 2020 by the European Commission, the new European Bauhaus aims to create a new art de vivre, combining creativity and sustainability. Like its historic precedent, it strives to stimulate creation to make our environment more beautiful, from urbanism to design, from architecture to fashion. Joining together art, cultural heritage and science, this creative movement is part of the European Green Deal. Heritage science can, by its dynamism, hugely contribute to new European Bauhaus. Heritage is a source of inspiration for its creativity and its resiliency. But what place does the new European Bauhaus and its stakeholders give to heritage science? To answer these questions, please welcome in a moment, the fourth person. We have some kind of trouble today with train and other problems. So please welcome Mariah Esposito, Policy Officer in charge of Cultural Heritage Research and Sustainable Development in the European Commission. Welcome. Then, as President of the Architects Council of Europe, Ruth Schagemann will explain to us how architectural heritage could help in contemporary architecture's preoccupation with low technology. Then Isabelle Verillac, International Innovation Director at La Cité du Design à Paris, one of the first partners of the new European Bauhaus. You're also President of the Bureau of European Design Association, the BEDA. And then a few moments with remotely, we will welcome Annick Schramme, Professor and responsible for the Master's Program in Cultural Management and the Faculty of Business in Economics in Antwerp. So please, Mariah.
Merci beaucoup pour cette
Thank you very much for your invitation. I would also like to thank the organizers of this conference, but also all of the participants and all of the other speakers for bringing us together for this extremely inspiring debate that all brings us together to discuss this highly exciting issue. Let me illustrate the New European Bauhaus initiative, particularly from a cultural perspective and with its cultural element. And I will do so based particularly on the viewpoint of DG Culture that I work for in the Unit for Cultural Policies. And we are really fortunate enough to be working a lot with a great many colleagues, and the dimension I will be presenting is very much related to heritage science, but also cultural policies. So we are very fortunate to be at the intersection of culture and heritage within the Commission with programs such as Horizon Europe, Creative Europe, everything that you have learnt more about with presentations from my colleagues. And these are all, there are a considerable number of little efforts that we are trying to make to extend our scope, and we hope that this Bauhaus initiative will also inspire, and it will be at the heart of the implementation of the projects which this new model wishes to contribute to culture and heritage professionals.
Slides, and for you to be sure that I was the one making the slides. Essentially, we are calling New European Bauhaus an initiative that has been launched by President von der Leyen at the end of 2020, inspired by the original historical movement of Bauhaus, which was, as you certainly know, something happening in a completely different context, both from a historic and a cultural point of view. But the common aspect is indeed the context in which Europe felt the need to inspire cooperation between arts and culture on one side and science and technology on the other side. So this is the main fil conducteur and inspirational principle that led the Commission to think that this label, this notion, reinvented with the new innovative aspect drawn from the historical background, could inspire and could resettle the motivation for society to think towards reinventing some necessities for society. At the time, the cooperation that happened between scientists from different disciplines, so from technology and engineers and arts and design, which was the main core of the Bauhaus school in the early 20th century, was driven by innovation and new productive systems that could redesign space with a view to functionality and common vision and common aesthetics. And again, what we're trying to shape at European level is indeed a movement that makes the experience for societies and for people of what are the needs today, essentially the needs to translate our main objectives at societal level and our main principles for a Green Deal aimed society that is more ecological, more sustainable, more careful to environment, towards a more positive and shared experience where the idea of quality of life and quality of living together and of having common experiences can be oriented to different needs that society has. So really the basic notion of the new European Bauhaus is to translate the European Green Deal into something tangible, positive, and also affordable, also inclusive. And this is how we can understand that the framework in which this movement, this vision, and also this initiative that becomes more and more concrete, we will see with some funding opportunities that are also linked to it, from the European side of programs, aims to combine and to inspire the different components of society to combine these three aspects that are linked to translating Green Deal into reality. Sustainability, from the perspective of climate goals, of circularity, of environment, and protection of biodiversity, to inclusion, valorizing diversity, and ensuring indeed in cohesiveness and affordability. And these are aspects that are particularly embedding cultural drivers. And the third one, aesthetics, which is the, let's say, the third pillar of this movement to foster common solutions and new solutions for making this quality of experience more close to different needs of people to share a positive experience of cultural spaces and public spaces with a common understanding and a common capacity to think in terms of European vision, is indeed the other pillar that embraces very much the role of culture, that goes hand in hand with attention to aesthetics, to attractivity, to buildings, capacity to drive perception of people that feel the sense of belonging. And the approach of this European initiative, again, aims to also push the different actors that can provide solutions where these three principles are combined to be transdisciplinary. So really to think in a different way and to work together in a way where the combination of disciplines and of thinking how public spaces and cultural values can be driven by the different forces that bring together the values of society can act together. And this is indeed where research and culture together come on the table. To give you just a very brief overview of what has been going on in the past year at the level of the European Commission, the intention was to, first of all, create a community of professionals, of citizens, of groups, of researchers, of scientists and policymakers, of course, who could work towards this vision and who could start designing possible projects and ideas where this Bauhaus vision could be translated into public and concrete experimented solutions. So we called this a sort of co-design phase where the Commission facilitated the organization of a number of discussions, conversations, gatherings, exchanges through a portal, through a number of tools, where all these stakeholders of the community could start reflecting together on what this new vision could bring forward and what were also the needs in terms of institutional support to make these projects possible at different levels. And we are now in the phase of approaching the so-called steps towards the delivery, where indeed funding tools and services are going to be mobilized by the European Union, but also towards processes that should facilitate also further fundings from national authorities and regional authorities that have become active parts of this community. And an important aspect of this process, also of this upcoming more concrete delivery phase where practical support, both in terms of funding and in terms of tools and processes is facilitated by the Commission, is characterized by a number of, let's say, formats to which the protagonists of this community can look at in order to bring a piece of the puzzle together. For example, the Commission has organized the so-called NEB prizes. These are awards that are given to artists or to creatives or to students into two categories: rising stars, which are the youngest, and the second category of those who are more into the professional phase of their career, that can bring forward some projects to be rewarded with the prize by the European Union. That is also a way to, of course, increase the visibility of their activity and of the potential cooperations that are taking place in Europe to be continued under larger scale projects. Another part of this, let's say, process-related action that Europe is facilitating is to identify a contact point in each national context to be a reference, to be a visible, let's say, point of contact for those in the country that are interested to better understand and to be part of this community. And there are also a number of analyses that are being published and that have been developed by different services of the European Commission. In particular, the report on the progress of the initiative that has been achieved so far, and in view of analyzing the opportunities and the calls that are now in the pipeline and that have started to be launched and are also described in a number of sessions that took place and that are available online for understanding what are the criteria for an eligible project under a program or another one of the European Union. And particularly when it comes to the thematic angles that these calls have opened up to researchers and to professionals that want to combine these efforts to present projects under this label of the New European Bauhaus, there are four main areas that have been identified by the communication of the Commission a few months ago.
May I ask you to go to the conclusion? Please.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Sorry.
That are indeed the idea of reconnecting to nature, regaining a sense of belonging, and prioritizing places and people that need it the most, together with the need for life cycle thinking and long-term vision of an industrial ecosystem that is really oriented to sustainability. I will increase the speed because there were still some slides, but I will really move towards the main aspect that shows how culture is integrated in these calls, which is under the research and innovation contribution of the different clusters in Horizon Europe. There are different areas that correspond to this thematic axis, but there is in particular one area, the one that is dedicated to cultural heritage and creative industries in Cluster 2. And this is where we have been including an important action for research and innovation dedicated to the role of culture, cultural heritage, and the contribution of architecture and design to work on cultural spaces and on cultural heritage buildings with a view to redesign these principles and to combine the efforts of professionals and researchers towards sustainability, inclusiveness, and sense of belonging. Just to conclude, indeed, this action is particularly pertinent to the whole thematic objectives of this cluster, and I wanted to stress that because beyond the call itself on the New European Bauhaus, the main lines of orientations for researchers in Cluster 2, as you can see, are on cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible, as it was widely said before, and also for the participation of stakeholders towards this new vision. So what we intend to do is now to focus on the follow-up of this first actions and to increase the possibility to work on these new Bauhaus principles under the next work program. And in Cluster 2, there will be a dedicated call that will call the communities of researchers on heritage and architects and designers again to work towards experimentations and near real cases where these solutions can be tested, can be demonstrated. This, as a conclusion, will really go hand in hand with a number of initiatives under the cultural policy angle. And that's why what was said before on Creative Europe and on sustainability as a mainstream topic across the calls of Creative Europe is also very important. And there is a study under Creative Europe on greening the program. So the greening dimension of it is really coherent with the principles that from the perspective of research, the Commission is trying to facilitate, to create appetite and opportunities for the new European Bauhaus to become more concrete.
Thank you, Mariah. I'm sorry, your speech is really captivating, but that's my terrible role to make the time respected. That's your turn, Ruth.
Mesdames et messieurs, le Conseil des...
Ladies and gentlemen, the European Architects Council is extremely concerned by a number of threats that weigh upon heritage, cultural heritage and architectural heritage in Ukraine, which no doubt will deeply compromise the country's ability to ensure its future prosperity in the long term. However difficult it may seem, our Ukrainian colleagues are already trying to consider the situation post-war. They will need to rebuild the country's infrastructure and the many cities that have been devastated by war. The European Architects Council believes strongly that the new European Bauhaus could really prove useful in this context, as the values and ambitions and the commitments of its partners may help to reveal things in future. And I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk on behalf of the Architects Council of Europe, which represents 560,000 architects across 43 professional organizations in 31 countries. Europe must become the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. The greatest European transformation processes have already started and will be fashioning society in the coming decades. The need for a paradigm change in planning and construction is acknowledged across Europe. After the debate, the time is now for action, which is why I would like to talk about the responsibility of European architects as regards the contribution of heritage and the new European Bauhaus. We need to create a sense of belonging, to transform the technocratic approach in public procurement, energy and environmental policies into a cultural project. The European Commission is not directly involved in the cultural world. The subsidiarity principle applies here, and member states are in charge of their own laws and regulations in order to create the renovation wave of the cultural process. This paradigm shift has been expressed recently. High-quality architecture has passed from the status of nice to have of something that is fully integrated for the common good. In the European debate, for instance, the Davos Declaration, conclusions of the European Council, and OMC conclusions, and most importantly, the Green Deal and renovation wave legislation. This is a window of opportunity for a profession, for the profession and for the built environment. It's a historic phase because Europe the built and living environment are elements of the larger scale climate change and resilience strategy. Let me give you a few figures. First of all, the importance of the construction sector in reaching carbon neutrality targets, and changes in the sector can have a meaningful impact. Our own ACE surveys show that architects contribute with their practices to 17 billion euros to Europe's economy. 57% of architects frequently design low-energy buildings. The total value of the EU construction market is 1.9 trillion euros. Output is dominated by 5 European countries: Germany, the UK, France, Italy, and Spain. These countries account for more than half of Europe's total construction output. According to EU statistics, the construction sector is considered as a growth sector. And the reason is as follows. As part of the renovation wave, the declared goal is to double the renovation rate. The need for a paradigm shift in construction has finally been recognized and accepted. Fact number one. Energy consumption and GHG emissions in the construction sector are higher than consumption in transport. Fact number two. Consumption of buildings accounts for 40% of total energy consumption, and it accounts for 36% of CO2 emissions. Fact number three, 28% of GHG emissions come from the operation of buildings and 11% from their construction, material and construction.
Point number four, fact number four, 75% of the building stock in Europe is inefficient. Having said that, there are measures which are easy to implement. Fact number five, Denmark and France have the highest share in high efficiency building stock. Let us now look at this. What's our heritage? Europe has an environment, a built environment, which is rich and multifaceted, incorporating strong elements of spiritual, cultural, social, and economic values. Because of the evolution of our economies, many cities, heritage cities, whether they're classified, listed or not, are either disused or have lost their original functions. In particular, industrial sites, religious ones, and also military ones, where there are contemporary buildings from the second half of the 20th century. The reuse as a strategy, adaptive reuse, is looking to preserve the values in our built environment. Moreover, it helps to adapt spaces to a new use. The new functions are associated with the values which are significant from a heritage point of view, and they can really transform industrial, religious, and military spaces for the regeneration of urban and rural areas alike. Thanks to smart renovation and transformation, heritage sites can find new, mixed, or extended uses. As a result, the social, environmental, and economic values are enhanced. And in addition, cultural significance is also increased. Adaptive reuse of our built heritage can also generate new social dynamics in the surrounding areas, thereby contributing to urban regeneration. What are we talking about? We're talking about participation of citizens and to the implementation of new frameworks of living, which increases the feeling of belonging. And heritage reused can also be used as a base for scholarly, school and educational programs. So the reuse, adaptive reuse, is really helps to make more cohesive territories, again, both in urban and rural areas. Adaptive reuse of our built heritage reduces, moreover, the consumption of construction materials. It can save energy, intrinsic and embodied energy, and limits urban sprawl. Indeed, it's possible to use this adaptive reuse to have a better performing, climate-proof, and healthier buildings, and more resistant to climate. In addition, the The projects of adaptive reuse can bring about long-term usability, added flexibility, and adaptivity to the future needs. Buildings are more resilient and cities more sustainable, and that is a principle of circular economy that needs to be applied. The heritage cities often can contribute to using the attractiveness, and they can bring about branding, generating jobs and growth. In addition, they can foster a feeling of belonging and can be a determining factor of local identity and regional identity. By preserving our heritage, adaptive reuse can also help to maintain and reinforce the perception that populations have of their own traditions and history. Projects of adaptive reuse, they often have the specific challenges throughout their life cycle, and they need to have a certain approach with flexibility, participative approach, and combining innovation with the traditional building techniques and the identification of regional low-tech materials. The teams, multidisciplinary teams, show a new narrative and can bring about a new narrative. All of that contributes to the success of projects. All these aspects are covered with looking at maintaining quality. And they are the building blocks of the new initiative, this new initiative, New European Bauhaus. It's our opportunity to really play our role. So dialogue between the past, present, and future is one characteristic, is a major feature of the projects of reuse. Architectural projects make projects tangible and concrete. And they really bring about different possibilities. A dialogue between the past, the present, and the future is to be encouraged. A multi-scale and a territorial approach is necessary, based on knowledge, on know-how. The reuse, adaptive reuse of our heritage, of our built heritage, brings about many advantages, both individual and to society, for the current generations and the generations of the future.
The valuables and the regulations, and to maintain the planification and the construction to develop the project of our heritage. I thank you very much for listening, and yes, looking forward to the discussion, mesdames et messieurs. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
And I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ruth. Dear Isabelle, the floor is yours now. Hello, everyone. So maybe you can put on the next presentation. No, I'm in charge here. I'll pass the presentation. Great. Thank you. Thank you to the organizers for this invitation. Today I'm going to talk on three levels. Director of the City Design, and as also as representative of the UNESCO City of Design of Saint-Etienne, and as chair of the BIDA, the Bureau of European Design Association. This is to show you how from local to global we can intervene and participate and take part in this initiative, which is the new European Bauhaus. Today we are talking about heritage and patrimony, I need to talk about our history, our narrative in Saint-Étienne, which is that of the city of design, which was launched in 1803. With our school, our design school. It's our drawing school, 1803. It's the industrialists of textile over du Ruban who asked for the creation of a school in order to bring about creation ideas, and notably with regard to drawing, design, and the Cité du Design. We have a fantastic greenhouse with trees from every country around the world to provide ideas and to help people have ideas and be inspired by the shapes. And in 1890, from an art school, it became a school of arts and design, associating and bringing together design and usage. We created a first department in 1990, and in 2010 we became a cultural public establishment for culture, which brings together the school and other activities. That was the International Biennial of Design, which we created in 1998, which received an award at the time. It was the automotive trade fair. It was a salon of design in all its shapes and formats coming from every country. And then in 2010, the city of Saint-Étienne received the label of creative design city by the UNESCO through this transformation of the city, which is really anchored in its heritage. This transformation at once of the companies, the enterprises with regard to their know-how in textile, in mechanics, in optics, and they became world leaders in medical textiles, notably. And it's also a policy of the city, which created the first position of design manager to be sure that the design was really integrated into all the city's projects. 2010, so we received the UNESCO label at the time, and we've developed a new activity which is accompanying the enterprises, the designers, for companies and local authorities to work with designers, and we commercialized this activity in order to arrive at the creation of a network, 100% Cité Service, which is also new at the service of an organization for a public establishment. So the original points of this design city, with its three activities of teaching, of art and design, of the spreading of culture for the general public, and to accompany local authorities and enterprises in their design projects, means that already we have on the same site, in this site Manufacture Créative, an ecosystem of stakeholders and players who do not always work together, bringing together the general public, researchers, teachers, and collectivities, as well as students. This is also symbolic for us because it's the weapons manufacture factory of Saint-Étienne, which is listed. The gardens also are listed. So for the people from Saint-Étienne, it's a sign, a strong symbol, a potent one, that a design be linked to its past, to its enterprises, and to its myriad of inventors. Saint-Étienne, a UNESCO design city since 2010. Therefore, this enables us to network, to exchange good practices with some 42 other cities, in effect. It's a strength of the network that I really wish to bring to the fore today with regard to this initiative of the new European Bauhaus, which enables us to move from the local territory and to move internationally, using this network as a springboard, either through UNESCO or through the BEDA, the Bureau of European Design Associations. It's a not-for-profit organization registered in Brussels, looking to design promotion centers and other publicly funded organizations in Europe. We have 52 members, which represent some 27 countries from Europe, including Turkey. because our first mission, next to the mutualization, the sharing of good practices and bringing people together, it's to work closer with the European Commission insofar as possible to ensure that design is really integrated into European policies. The preceding bureau had published a white paper called Design for Growth and Prosperity. So when the initiative of the new European Bauhaus was announced at the end of 2020, the BIDA was one of the first official partners with ACE precisely, and we held meetings together, bringing together our members, design and architecture, in order to really be in this interdisciplinary dynamic. So everybody at the European level has really pushed its members at the national level, have really pushed and helped this initiative and ensured that it was well understood, so that the general public and the companies can use and they know about this true engine. In order to say that it started from Europe, it started from the President herself to really incentivize us to work all together to invent the world of tomorrow, to ensure that it's more sustainable, more aesthetic, and more inclusive. In the formats which have been presented previously, one of the most recent formats is what we call the new European Bauhaus Places of Learning, which is a school at the heart of our design city, and we are going to respond to this call to be part of this community, because we are part of this community at once BIDA, but also the design city as such is also an official partner. We are going to really respond to the new European Bauhaus Festival in the name of the City of Design, with our annual biennial City of Design, which will take place at the same time as the European Bauhaus Festival. In June, with our BIDA partner in Spain, there's also the Barcelona Design Week, which will take place concomitantly. We've decided to bring it together under label of the new European Bauhaus, Saint-Etienne, Barcelona and Brussels, to enable all our members to be visible. And we wish to associate also our partners with that. The school, and it's this question of apprenticeship, of learning, it's what we carry, it's what we champion, because we stem from a school originally, and our project that we are preparing, that we're working on, and it will be on Europe Horizon Cluster 2. We hope is focused on this new shapes, these new forms of education. What we're saying is precisely that it's from our young people, from our youth, that creativity stems, and it's by getting them to work with professionals, with enterprises, with startups, but also with local authorities. And we are responding to that with several creative cities of design. One in America and others from the UNESCO heritage, saying that our cities are places where experiments can be carried out, and to enable all the different people who generally don't work together, as a rule, to come together, to work together, and at once to train youth and to upskill professionals, but around concrete projects which will involve the citizens, because the design is first and foremost focused on its end users. So it's a fantastic methodology, it's collaborative methodology of co-creation, and the new European Bauhaus brings us indeed, it's an additional pretext, objective and financing also, we hope, to be able to work together in order to respond to and to be in line with the stakes of tomorrow. I have to add that with regard, we have had co-creative workshops, but I don't know if it was because of the lockdown, but there was really a lot of hope that came out of it, and we'll have the 12th biennial, even if it's maybe really not always the easiest given the current situation, but the title is Bifurcation, choisir l'essentiel, to choose what's essential, and how it can be integrated, design into everything, mobility, accommodation, health, to work together and to really change the way in which we move ahead. Thank you for your attention. Is Annick with us? Is Annick with us? Please. Annick Schramm. Here she is.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I'm quite big on the screen.
Don't worry.
It's like Big Brother.
Well, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, and thank you very much for this invitation. I'm very happy to be part of this panel, and unfortunately, the tallies had a delay, so I had to return to my office to prepare or to give the presentation. Yes, it's really challenging to look at heritage, heritage science and heritage research in relation to the new European Bauhaus. I really think that the new European Bauhaus really offers the opportunity to rethink also some heritage issues. And I think we should develop a common agenda. I hope to enrich and inspire also both practice and research directions, because we need to think about new alternative perspectives on doing, studying, and reflecting on heritage and heritage planning. I was also for my talk inspired by an article from different authors, Veldhuis, Krishna Kiziv, Eva Stegger, and Joks Janssen, that I really can recommend on that. So there are many angles to be explored, many ideas to be shared, and actions to be undertaken. So I will only present a few ideas. But what is crucial to the new European Bauhaus is these values of inclusivity, sustainability, and aesthetical and ethical challenges from a local place. So this ecosystem approach, I think, is a very interesting one because it invites all the stakeholders in a different place to collaborate and to look not only from a sectoral point of view, what can be done, but really through collaboration and also into research, the interdisciplinary approach. It is already mentioned several times this afternoon. So heritage planning is crucial and it relates to contemporary challenges. So spatial planning operates always in a world full of context and meaning. So spatial planning is also a form of heritage planning. And yeah, the link between both is really important. So the relationship between the two practices should be aligned with wider societal challenges, like sustainability, inclusivity, and so on. So current research in heritage planning is largely focused on understanding the impact that diverse challenges have on heritage, and then to manage the threats for the sake of heritage safeguarding. And that's the dominant logic until now. I think instead of research that considers the roles and impacts, both positive and negative, of heritage planning in addressing societal challenges. So it's not only about the how question, but also the what question, what it actually does, and to whom. So the ecosystem approach is crucial. It's about the interrelational between different domains, societal domains, and research. So heritage is too often about a very limited set of buildings, voices, and values. So I think we have to start with the definition. It has to become more inclusive in response to the critique that reconceptualization of heritage is an iterative process and practice of selecting, interpreting, and presenting the past. So heritage is a highly contextual process which takes place within a setting of complex frameworks. So legally, institutionally, practices, funding, political priorities, spatial planning, and so on. And so we need to have this, to analyze this multi-stakeholders approach and to stimulate that. It's about roles and responsibilities, and they vary and they are changing all the time. Yes? And they move between public, private actors, and civil society. And I think there are three pivotal issues: the social, the environmental one, and the economic perspective. And how do they, again, interrelate to each other? So heritage research and planning helps us posing questions for making Europe, our city, our region, a more diverse, aesthetical, and sustainable place. One important dimension of the social issue is the governance of inclusion, a co-governance of heritage places. So how can we include civic engagement in heritage planning? From heritage consumers to active partners and giving new interpretations. How do we make participatory governance fundamental, valuable, and ethical? So, and therefore we need to change our everyday routes and procedures, because it is also related to power relations, and we have to change these relations if we really mean it with co-governance and community practices. The urban commons are more and more explorative routes to see how also citizens can take the ownership back of the space and also heritage spaces, and to give it a new meaning. So the research should focus on the ethics of co-governance and participatory processes. And this is a process, a collaborative process between practices and research. Yes, it's really iterative. And also for researchers, it's not only from heritage science, but it's also from other disciplines. So this collaboration is really important, and also other methodologies. So not only historical research, and not only citizen planning, but also management, also ethnographic research. And so we have to explore these new methodologies, action research methods, co-creation, and in order to move on. Inclusivity is not only about how can we include the citizens, but also understandings of dissonance, even embracing dissonance. That's really plurality. And to organize the discussion in this process. A second challenge is the green challenge, also part of this new European Bauhaus. So global and local issues around climate change and sustainability will become even more central to decision-making, also in heritage planning. Considerations on what we preserve and why are magnified in the face of climate change. So heritage planning also provides mechanisms to encourage sustainability. So continued use or adaptive reuse of historic elements helps in reducing, reusing, and recycling material waste. So therefore, this increased focus on adaptive reuse of heritage planning policies in Europe and in many European countries is really part of this process. But making these choices brings us back also through these power relations. How do we make these choices? And I think we should also move from risk reduction and protection, and what was mostly done in the past, to adaptation towards transformative practices. It's already been said by previous speakers. And therefore, I think it's not only about greening, reusing and adapting, but also about challenging our anthropocentric view on research, practice and policy. We should challenge also the relation between nature and culture, this divide, and looking to other existing regimes of meaning making and cultural significance. And so reimagining the space we operate and live in. So that's really about questions about continuity, change, and also loss. That's part of it. When we reduce environmental impacts through sustainable and adaptive reuse, how to address the underlying choices? That's a crucial question. It has also an impact on local communities, of course, and minority groups. And what is considered worth saving? Heritage or people is not, these considerations are not neutral. So it's a web of political choices, questions of environmental, social, and economic issues. And we know also already from research that climate change measures do have the tendencies also to reinforce existing social and economic inequalities. How can we avoid that? How can we address that? That's really also a political challenge. And if we want to include reflection on the impact of global warming, there is a need also for an interdisciplinary approach with the energy sector. Again, this interdisciplinary approach. The third big challenge is the economic challenge. So over the last few decades, heritage planning has played a crucial role and made a substantial contribution to the economic development of places and landscapes. Through Europe, we saw that many buildings and post-industrial spaces have been rehabilitated into lively urban quarters. We call that urban regeneration. And since the 19th, the aims to boost city economies and to creatively reuse heritage have very much been aligned. So conservation and real estate development have become partial to each other, complementary to each other. Often, the main reason was for this reuse was often profitability. So it was a kind of logic of growth. And heritage was in this growth logic, heritage is become a commodity, although it can also be considered a commons, a public good. So we need to include these layers, perspectives, and voices that aren't often not seen in these processes of commodification. So bringing this all together, we also know that some locations, some places benefits a lot from this economic growth perspective, others don't, because they have not the same attractiveness or resources. So we need to think about alternatives to market-driven development objectives and look at these alternative governance models. And that brings me back to the beginning, like the commons, collaborative planning, community involvement. We are used to the very dominant narratives of government-led or market-driven heritage conservation and management. But when we have this bottom-up approach, and this community involvement, that's a real challenge, I think, for the future. And the new European Bauhaus offers this opportunity to do that research also, research in a close dialogue and interaction with practitioners and policymakers. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I guess we won't have time for any questions now. We have to close the session because the next to come yet. Thank you so much for attending and contributing for these stimulating lectures. Thank you so much. Donc, maintenant, nous allons passer aux conclusions.
We are going to move to conclusions now, and for that, for once, we are going to maybe bring a few men up on stage. We were not getting, Pascal Liévaux is going to come up and introduce the different speakers who are going to provide you with the different takeaways that they have after the different speakers.